Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome back to Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Maybe you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And today, starting off the April lineup here on the channel, we have our first author interview of the month. Now, starting our lineup is an incredible author who has a degree in creative writing and has spent most of her life dreaming of becoming a real writer. As a published author, she brings stories and inspiration to the masses. And her biggest dream is to give back to the community in any way she can. Her debut series, The Creatures of Orient, released back in 2025. Now, when she's not lost in the realms of her own imagination, she spends her free time getting artistic. She also loves photography, music, and putting footprints in new places. And spending time with her loved ones is a huge priority for her whenever she's not trying to organize the chaos of the endless news story ideas and battling a never-ending TBR. I am so excited to have her here on the show to talk about not just her series, but also give us an update of the next book in her series, which will be coming out very soon in a few weeks. So, without further ado, everybody, let us give a huge round of applause to our headliner of the month, author Chloe Pattison. Chloe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Chloe. Awesome. So excited to have you here.
Very excited to be
here. You're welcome. Now, before we begin, for those that are now just meeting you for the very first time, can you give them a little overview of your series? You have any books that you could hold up to give a little teaser into what we can expect?
I do indeed. I came prepared. So this is book one. We have Born of Steel. This is our debut kickoff that came out, I think it was around April, May-ish last year. This is a single point of view from the female main character, Sky Dahlia. It is basically, I give a two-word breakdown of fantasy assassins whenever anybody asks, but there is romance, there is a little bit of spice. It does get kind of dark, so for anyone that is interested, please check your trigger warnings. I have a blog post on my website that lists them all. But yeah, basically, overview of this one is Sky did something very, very bad. We kick off the story with her being caught from being on the run, and she is taken home to what they call the Manor, which is kind of like her assassin guild, and basically chaos ensues, and it's all to do with, or she thinks it's all to do with, the re-arrival of someone from their past. So it kind of like he links into all of the messy stuff that seems to be going on and everything that seems to be going wrong in her life, and she's trying to prove he is the guilty party for this one. So
okay.
Yes, it is going to be several books in this series, so this is just the first one. Also have several novellas planned out. The first one is already out. It's Ash's Hunt, and this is The Guy That Catches Her. So this is a direct prequel to book one. This is basically what he gets up to while he's looking for her. And then I do have, if anybody has been on my socials, the cover for book two, which is already ready and waiting to hopefully be published in a couple of weeks.
Very nice, Chloe. Very, very nice. Now, before we dive into your journey of becoming an author and creating this incredible series, as a little icebreaker question, is there a random fact about you that not a lot of people know?
I have over 60 tattoos.
Ooh, very nice.
Yes,
very, very nice.
Most of them are on my arms. They're called patchwork sleeves, so most of them are really small. I've got one on the back of my neck, one on the back of my shoulders, one across my ribs, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on my legs.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Is there a particular favorite tattoo of yours?
I think the most recent one I got, I mean, I did a few of them myself. I've been a novice tattoo artist for a while. I say novice because I've had a little bit of formal training, but not enough to actually work in a shop. So like enough for them to actually come out well and not hurt anybody. but not enough to actually have a full-time position in a shop.
Mm.
The last one I got done was when I was in holiday with my partner in Tenerife. I got a dragon on my leg. I did the rest of the ones that are on my leg, but everybody seems to think that this little rainbow puzzle piece, that is one of the first ones that everyone noticed. Oh, I love the rainbow puzzle piece. What does that mean? So yeah, that's seems to be a crowd favorite.
Awesome, Chloe. All right. All right. So now let's kind of go back in time a little bit to the conception of this series and your journey of being an author. Now, from your bio, it's very clear that being a creative writer, being a creative person in general has been intertwined with your well-being for many a years. It's part of who you are. So what would you say definitively was your aha moment, your starting point, where you decided to take everything you have learned and create something that was inherently you?
Well, like you said, it's always kind of been intertwined, especially through my childhood. I had a little bit of a turbulent childhood, so this was my way of kind of like getting out all of the feelings I didn't really understand. It was always through art or writing or doodling or writing song lyrics or whatever it was, poetry. Apparently my auntie and my mum keep telling me that I used to have this little like mini single man pop-up tent that I used to put in my bedroom, and they'd find me in there with like a little notebook writing stories and things like that, with my feet poking at the end and wiggling around. So I think it was always kind of a part of my life. I remember being in what we call primary school. I guess you would call it like first to second grade or something.
Okay.
We had to write like a story for English, and it was always just like 5 paragraphs. The first paragraph was the introduction, last paragraph was the ending, 3 paragraphs in the middle, the bulk of the story. I was always the child that wrote 5 pages. So that was always kind of there in me, I guess. But I think for the moment when I realized, like as I was going through my schooling, I think secondary school or high school for me, I had an English teacher that as I was writing the stories, again, the kid that wrote 10 times more than they needed to, going through my stories and stuff, he would obviously have to grade all of my stuff. So he did pull me aside after one of my English classes and were like, you're going to be a writer one day. And I kind of took that and the fact that I've always finished early and did a lot of reading whenever I was done and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, you're definitely going to be a writer. So I decided to take that forward into university or college and got my degree. I was 1 mark off of first. I blame my games writing teacher because it was a new course and she didn't know how to grade it properly. But I was 1 mark off a first degree in creative writing. I've got a Bachelor of Arts honours in creative writing, and I think just learning about all the different kinds of writing, the different processes and things like that. Obviously going through the 3 years to get the undergraduate degree. We got into, I've always continued writing through my life. So the dissertation piece I had, I'm actually still working on as a series. It's just yet to come out because it needs a lot of refinement. But that dissertation piece, I think, was okay, I do actually want to publish something. I want to take this somewhere. And then we hit the first lockdown and I was like, well, I've got all this time. I might as well use it. So I was rigorously studying Japanese because I thought I was going to go and teach English in Japan. Lockdown happened, it kind of fell apart. So we're still in England. But the story that I was writing for my dissertation, I was continuing to write. And then I was on Pinterest randomly one day, saw a picture of a girl with pink hair and daggers, and I was like, oh, who's she? She turned out to be Sky Dahlia, character primero of Born of Steel. So it was just taking that character, building onto it, giving her friends, giving her family, backstory, and then the world kind of built around her. And then now I have a 6-book series that will be continuing to come out over the next few years, of like 9 or 10 novellas planned, I think. So yeah, that was starting point, and I think the aha moment was probably like properly in that first lockdown where I was like, no, I actually want to publish something. That is what I'm supposed to be doing. So
Very nice.
yeah,
Very, very nice, Chloe. So now let's actually dive into the behind the scenes of being an author and the beginning of this incredible series. So let's actually start off with probably the beginning point, which is the overall title of the series. I've
Mhm.
always been very fascinated about how authors conceive the titles of their books or their series. So, what was the inspiration for your series, the name itself?
So I was initially planning on this to be more of like a longer standalone type book. Um, it did obviously grow very much from that. I was going to initially have it be a longer book. It was supposed to be kind of like multiple points of view, with a couple of the other characters, which will develop from book two. Um, but the main part of it, I was going to split it into a longer book and have three different parts. And I think I was going to have it potentially split into two books, maybe if people were interested in the first one. And I was going to have Women of Twilight because I like the idea of like the setting sun, the stars, and I primarily write from the female point of view in the main books, just because I find it a little bit easier with the female. Um, and then I was going to have like Queens of Dawn or something as the story developed. But then I decided to break it down further into more books because I was trying to fit basically an entire novel into one part. I was like, this is going to be a little bit too much for some readers. A lot of people see like a very thick, chunky book and they're like, no, I'm scared. So myself included, I have a couple of those books that I'm like, I really, really want to read this, but I know it's going to take me ages, so I haven't picked it up yet. I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted it to be kind of like very much a reader-friendly series where it was still filled with a lot of kind of like emotionally intense things and healing and growing and kind of like accessing trauma in order to be able to heal it within yourself. That's kind of what I hope these books do for people. But the titles themselves came when I split the book out into six, because initially I was only going to have those two parts of like with like two books with three parts each, so I just split the parts basically. And then the titles came from like, okay, what is the general theme within this part of the book? So first part is obviously Born of Steel. Second part was Born of Fury. So we do have obviously the four other titles that will be coming later. But I feel like this one was kind of like her initial fight to like coming back into a world that she knew that she's been on the run from. And obviously, what do you fight with? Blades, steel. So Born of Steel is like, this is the kind of environment that molded her. This is the environment that turned her into who she is, and she is a fighter at heart. She uses daggers, so it was very much like that is the heart piece of this book. And then we see from the events of this book how it develops and where the fury comes from in book two.
All right. All right. And when you began writing the series back in 2025, what really surprised you about the initial writing process in the beginning? And has that changed as you go into the next book in the series?
So I started writing these a while ago. I started writing them in lockdown, which I believe was about 2020. The reason it took me so long to be able to publish it, one, I did take a break for about 9 months from writing just because I had a lot going on in my life. But then I realized that one of the reasons that I wasn't doing very well was because I wasn't writing. So I jumped back into it and I've just kept going since then. I think the initial writing process for me, the hardest part is editing. And that and marketing, because I'm obviously independent. But hardest part was the editing, because obviously the phrase "kill your darlings" comes from having to take some of the bits that might actually be part of your favorite bits, but it doesn't quite fit the story, and having to
Absolutely
scrap it or save it for another story, save it for later. So that was kind of one of the hardest parts for me. Even if it's just like certain words, I'm like, no, but that fits so well, and other people are like, no, it doesn't. You need to change it, scrap it, get rid of it somehow. So coming up with a story that flows very well and also keeps readers gripped while also not being like constant tension or constant softness, having that balance between them. Especially as we get through the series and the story splits into different points of view, keeping up the different voices and the different tones, and keeping the intensity in certain moments, keeping the softness in certain moments, having the balance between them so people don't get overwhelmed or bored or anything like that. Keeping the balance is definitely takes some skill, something that you definitely learn as you go along.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing which I find very interesting to talk about with fellow authors and fellow creatives in general is balancing everything, because we're also people outside of being authors, whether or even artists, narrators, editors. We're people beyond that, and sometimes it's very difficult or very challenging to balance everything out and not feel burn out at the end. So for you, Chloe, as you were writing, the first book and then following that up with prequel novella and now writing the second book in the series, how do you maintain a healthy balance of paying attention and giving attention to your creative work, but knowing when to take a step back when needed?
I think one of the things that helps, I do have ADHD as well, so being able to juggle multiple things at once is kind of one of the skills that comes with that. As many downfalls as there are, that is definitely a skill that helps. I do have like multiple ideas, multiple series, that multiple books that I jump between. So if I need to take a step back from one project, I kind of take the time to jump into another one and make a little bit of progress there. And then when I feel time is right, when I'm ready, I jump back into the other one. Especially because this series is quite long, and I know that sometimes I very much need a break and I need a fresh set of eyes on it. I have actually drafted all of the main series. I'm currently working on drafting up the novellas as well, so everything's just kind of like punch, ready to go. Especially because once I start releasing something, there are some authors that will be like, yeah, I'm going to release something, and then wait like 6-7 years before they release the next thing. That infuriates me. I didn't want to be that person. So yeah, trying to balance the kind of like writing and resting. I tend to rest a little bit less than I should. I'm very much guilty of that, but I tend to take a break from one series by jumping into another one, and then I feel like I'm constantly making progress in other projects as well, as that will be something to lead on to when this series does inevitably come to an end. At least I'll have more than one thing to my name. I'll have more than one project going. So if, like, for example, if someone doesn't exactly like this one, it's not really to their taste, then I have something else to offer, but balancing the kind of like work-life thing, I do struggle with quite a lot, as I do like work a lot of hours at my day job. It's very chaotic and intense there at the moment, as I've been going through a restructure and everything. So has been a lot, but I've got, luckily, support from my partner and my friends and all of the people that I'm on all these like indie author groups and things like that. So I'm managing to keep on top of it, as well as having time to draw and help other people, go to the gym, fight out the power and all that kind of thing. So yeah, just kind of keeping on top of it, having at least a semi-steady schedule does me very good.
Very true, Chloe. Very true. And now we come to the age-old question every author must ask themselves: are you a planner or a pantser?
Oof. I would definitely lean on the side of planner, just because I do have everything written down kind of like chapter by chapter. But I am a pantser in the term that I like, if I'm writing and the story changes or the characters do something I wouldn't expect them to do or something like that, because that does happen. Like with Born of Steel, perfect example. I was planning it to be a single book, or like large single book standalone that wasn't set in another realm, was kind of more like an alternative universe for this one. There was going to be no magic, no fantasy, no nothing. And now it is a long romantasy series. So the idea of like being able to roll with the changes and then kind of like see what you like, what you don't like, and then replan is kind of why I roll off the term of I am a bit of a pantser because sometimes I'll start the story and then plan it. Most of the time I will do like a chapter by chapter breakdown of roughly what I want to happen in each chapter to be able to keep the flow of the story. But if some things change, I am able to go through and make some changes and make sure that it does come out better. So I definitely lean on the side of planner for sure.
Absolutely. And I would argue I'm kind of the same as well. I like to be organized.
Mhm.
I can't be a pantser in the beginning. It doesn't work. But I have noticed that I will go down the route of being a pantser if some chapters, if there's like a huge gap in like, like, oh, this happened, but like, oh, we're already doing here, especially when it comes to time jumps.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, wait a minute. There's like 10 years in between like chapters 2 and chapters 3. There's something that needs to go in there. So I find myself going in between 2 and 3 and adding 3, 4, 5 chapters
Mhm.
at most to at least flesh it out and also give a lot more backstory to the characters, the world building, and just making it consistent and everything. Because I think for me as an author, that's what I want to achieve with all my books. I want there to be consistency in my writing. I want there to be, what's the word I'm thinking of? I want it to be make sense. I want my stories to make
Mm.
sense from beginning to end.
Coherent.
Mhm. I don't want to write a story that's going to be confusing because the chat one section of the book is like either too difficult to follow or doesn't make any sense. That's ultimately been my promise and my goal. And
Mhm.
speaking of promises and goals, Chloe, for you and this series, what was your initial goal when you embarked on this journey with this series? And looking back from the first book you wrote to now getting the second book ready for publication, what has been your promise, not just to yourself as the author, but to your readers who have stuck by you since the first book?
I think my general motivation for writing initially came from um when I was younger. My mum used to take me to like day trips to the library. We used to go upstairs, we'd pick one book from the adult section for her because obviously they were a lot bigger, and then we'd go down to the child section with like a little bit of a picnic, and we'd just like pick out a few books for me, and we would just sit and read all day. That kind of ability to kind of like let myself get lost in somewhere else has quite literally saved my life on multiple occasions. So I kind of wanted to pass on the torch, so it were. So
Mm,
be able to give someone that escape, give someone the ability to kind of like not be where they are if they're not happy where they are, but within that escape, give them reasons to kind of like carry on, to feel that inspiration and to feel that, that life can be kind of rubbish sometimes, or in a more extreme term, but it can also be worth it. And
mm,
that, I think, the inspiration and the drive and the will to carry on, and just kind of like see in these characters the growth and development, the things that they go through, the things that I put them through because I am the god, um, and see them be able to kind of like come back from those things and how they heal and how they move on and how they adapt and grow and um, triumph, I suppose, or achieve success over these things, can hopefully inspire somebody to be able to do the same with whatever they're going through. So I think I try and do that in most of the books that I'm writing. They are very much like, to the wider public, I see you, I hear you, and I believe in you. That is kind of what I try to do with as many of my books as possible, because other writers have done that for me, and that is the kind of like message I would like to be able to pass on through my writing.
well said, Chloe. Well said. And now we're going to shift gears and go into the first round of fan questions that I have gathered over the years. I want to say, starting probably last year, I'm getting a lot of fan questions, general fan questions from A lot of viewers who have messaged me through my website as well as privately messaged me on my socials, and I've gathered them into a list of fan questions. Now, some of these may border on spoilers for the books, so feel free to give as much or as little detail as necessary. So we'll start off easy with the first one. One of
Mhm.
my viewers would like to know, when writing this series, how did you ensure your characters were authentic to the world they were presented in?
I think it was a little bit easier in this series because I kind of built the world around the characters. The characters came first, especially the female main character from book one. She was kind of like the initial spark for the story. So I feel like being able to kind of like keep that momentum going with keeping the characters like perfect for the setting was not very difficult because they're kind of like they came first.
Mm,
The world kind of built around them, as in like the characters kind of bounced off each other, and they were I kind of like whenever I write I kind of see it as like a movie in my head. So I kind of embody the character that I'm in, or I'm like just behind them, and I kind of like visualize or I see what how they're moving through the world, I see what they see, and then I just kind of describe how it appears in my head. Um, so I think because the world was sparked by the characters, the ability to keep the voice kind of like again coherent and consistent with the people within that world wasn't too much of a problem. I feel like I've had a little bit of trouble in some other cases where the world came first, or like the setting came first and the characters kind of like plopped into the setting.
mm.
Um, I feel like with that case, it's very much a case of again editing, going back, making sure that we're consistent, coherent, and being able to um, keep up the actual character itself. And yeah.
Nice. Very good answer, Chloe. Now, the next set of questions, this viewer would like to know, and these may border on spoilers, just letting you know. The first part is a two-part question.
Mhm.
This viewer would like to know, when writing the first book and the prequel novella, do you have a favorite scene or moment from those books? And bonus one, do you have a favorite character that you've enjoyed writing?
Oof. Um, favorite character, I would say you're definitely going to see more of in book two. They do appear in book one, not so much in the prequel novella, but they definitely do appear in book one. They like introduce as characters, and then we kind of like build to get more of their points of view from book two forwards. Pepper and Ivy, I would say, were probably like I definitely can't choose between them because the way that their stories grow and the way their characters develop and the things that they go through and how they go through them. I was always really, really excited to write those chapters. Just from how badass they are, and they're like completely opposite ends of the spectrum. They both go through something that's kind of traumatic and really bad, but they take it in completely different ways. So getting both ends of that spectrum was really, really interesting to write. Like one of them goes a little bit off the rails, and then the other one just kind of like uses that to strengthen her. So
Mhm.
they both end up kind of stronger in different ways, but one of them kind of like takes it to a dark place, and one of them takes it to a lighter place. From book one, favorite scene, uh, probably it's kind of like a really cozy scene, but it's one of the ones where they are like the main character is getting ready for a night out, or like a dinner or something like that. It's like she's been invited to an event and she's trying to get ready for it. There's a couple of scenes where she gets some people to like help her get ready. So whether it's the like mother figure in
Mm.
the book or her sister, um, being able to write that like cozy little bit banter moment of like helping is almost like one of the most normal things in the book is like getting ready to go out for a dinner party or something. like getting to choose the like hairstyle and makeup and what shoes we're going to wear and what dress we're going to pair with it and how everything goes together, and kind of like just chilling and chatting at the same time. And I think the second favorite would probably be when Sky meets Ivy. That is a very, very powerful scene, I think. There's quite a few of those. There's quite a few of those, but that's probably my top two.
Nice. Very nice. Now, this one's a very special fan question. And again, this may border on spoilers, but this viewer would like to know, is there a character that we will see either in the beginning or throughout the series that will either be hate to love or love to hate?
From the first couple of books, just from like the first two, not going out like throughout the series, because there's definitely a few of those later on.
Okay.
But for the moment, what people are going to see for the moment, I would say love to hate, as in like start out loving them and then going to like bordering towards hating them. I would say probably Pepper. Because she does go through like the traumatic stuff and she does kind of take it to a darker place, and she's like, again, the like person from the past is kind of like the catalyst for all of that, which is one of the reasons that Sky's like, no, this dude's bad news. But yeah, she does kind of like twist quite early on and take it to a darker place. So I feel like that's one of the characters that is definitely going to be on that scale.
Nice. Very nice. And this next question kind of leads into the next segment of the interview, Chloe, and that is, of course, the reflective side of being an author. Now, this question, I don't want to say it's a very loaded question, but it definitely offers a lot of thought and reflection. And that is, when did you feel confident in yourself to claim the title of being an author? And I'll give some context for that question. I've been doing this show now for about almost 8 years, and I've had a lot of authors from trad, hybrid, indie, small, aspiring, debuting, all of that. And the answers change depending on the person, which I think is good. I think it's very, very good. And this notion of when do we claim the title of being an author, even though indies are on the rise and have been rising for a very long time, there's still that stigmatism that if you are an indie, you're not really an author, as opposed to saying you are signed with Penguin Random House, Dell Books, Tor, any of the major publishing houses, not even just in the United States, but also anywhere in the world. There is that stigma to the indie title, despite indie books, soaring higher and higher. And I'm just curious, for you, Chloe, when you began this journey of yours, creating your own books, when did you feel confident in yourself to say that I'm not just a writer, I'm also an author? And once you felt comfortable saying that out loud to yourself, when did you tell friends and family that you were embarking on this, or did they already know from the get-go?
So I think I always said I was a writer up until the point when I actually had my book as a physical thing available for people to read. So once I'd actually set the publication date and it was actually published on, because at the moment all of my stuff is only on Amazon, on KDP. I'm working on getting it in other places, but
Nice.
At the moment the only place to get it is Amazon. So once I'd hit that submit and it said live on Amazon, and it was all like fixed and sorted and didn't need to make any more changes to it, that was when I was like, okay, I'm an author, I'm not just a writer. Because obviously before that, you can be putting it all together, you can be writing and editing and stuff like that. But I think for me, the point of like author versus writer is the publication point. So if I have something that's actually published and available for people to buy and to read, that was when I started claiming that I was an author. So obviously indie author, because I am completely independent. All of my stuff is only on Amazon at the moment. But the publication point for me was the point where I'm like, okay, I'm actually an author. So friends and family already knew I was a writer. They all knew that my book was coming out. So from the point that my book actually came out, especially the first one last year, that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm actually an independent author now.
All right, all right. Now let's tackle probably the biggest elephant in the room, and that is, what does it mean to be an indie author in the digital age? Because as I touched on previously, the industry has changed in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, if we look back to like maybe the early 2000s, trad was still the dominant form of publication. I mean, you did have hybrid publication, small press publication, and maybe the early onset of indie. But during those early years, there was still some challenges with being an indie author, and not just in terms of writing novels. You're talking about independent comics or independent print. There was an uphill battle because everybody assumed that if you're indie, you're not as professional. We can't say that anymore because indie creatives are on the rise. There are indie comics, indie books, especially. And it's through these independent creations that get picked up by the major publishing houses and realizing, oh, we need this author because they've done this, this, and this. And social media and the internet has been a big boon to that. We're able to connect with our fans, connect with our readers, build our social media profile, and create our brand. But with that said, it's a double-edged sword. Social media has become very addicting and very draining. We do leave ourselves exposed to the darker side of social media. And unfortunately, with the book industry of not having a clear guideline of what's this, this, and this, some books have been mislabeled or misgenred, and that has led to huge backlash for sometimes good reasons and most part, unfortunately, for horrible reasons. And that can weigh heavily on our imposter syndrome as well as our writer's block, because those get heightened tenfold by social media. So with that said, Chloe, for you, as you were building your social media presence with these books, what helped you stay grounded in your initial goal that you set out in the beginning? What has kept you, I don't want to say motivated, but disciplined?
I think it would probably be a moment from university. Obviously, I did a creative writing course, and I remember one of my lecturers putting a prompt on the board and being like, I'm a little bit hungover, not gonna lie, so I'm just gonna make you write today. So university I went to. Yeah, so it was a prompt that was like, find something around the room, use that as a starting point and build, basically. Whether it's the start of a story, a short story, a poem, just something, create something. And I think I used the title Purple Water because I had a purple water bottle and just kind of built from that, and it was like the opening of a novel. But it was looking around and seeing, I think there was like 20 people in that class, how every single person had used that prompt and come up with something different. So even if it had been a more detailed prompt and been like, use this character, this, and this, every single person would still take that, use their own perspective on it, and create something that only they could create. Everyone is going to have a unique perspective. So even if there are some similarities between the work, there will always be that unique perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that I create only I can create. Someone can create something similar to me, but it won't be exactly the same because they don't think the way I do. They haven't been through the same things that I have. They haven't had the same experiences in life. They don't have the same thought processes as me. They don't see the world the way I do. So having that as kind of like a motivation to kind of keep going is because that, like, I have these stories inside me and I feel like I can like help people with them, even if it's just for entertainment. I feel like I can help people with them, and I feel like I need to give that back. That's my legacy, and no one will be able to do it the same way that I do. No one can create what I can create.
Very well said, Chloe. Very well said. Now we're going to jump into the business side of being an author. So we'll start off with a little icebreaker question. When it came to the marketing side of being an author, what really surprised you about that? And as you work to get the second book published in the series, in terms of promotion, what are things that you are going to do differently for this book that you wish you'd done for the first book and the prequel novella?
Marketing I am still very much working on. First book's only been out for a year and I do have a full-time job around that, so I haven't just been able to throw myself into it the way that I would have liked to. I think having the access and I'm like starting to understand what kind of content works and what sounds to use as like promotional marketing, the hooks that work, the like being able to use like the trial reels on Instagram and things like that, seeing it so it'll push it to people that I'm not subscribed to first or aren't subscribed to me first, and then being able to share it afterwards kind of boosts the views a little bit. Being able to know what kind of like what hashtags work, what keywords work, that kind of thing. Also doing things like this and going on to like author spaces and creative spaces and being able to talk about it, because I think I did put my head into a couple of bookshops, local bookshops, and be like, can I do a talk here? And they were like, that would be great. And then I never went back and did anything about it because life got too busy, work got too busy. With book 2 coming out, I think I might go and ask them if they're still interested, because that could be something that would actually help. But yeah, with marketing, I'm still very much learning. It's still very much a learning curve. And I think just knowing where to put yourself would be, and like what spaces to encroach on. Because a lot of interest I have actually drummed up is from things like this, or from like commenting on people's posts that are looking for something very specific, and I just happen to fit within that niche. So yeah, knowing where to kind of insert myself and be like, you might like my stuff, kind of thing. Doing that on an individual basis is taking a very long time, so maybe time to start looking around for slightly bigger places that have that niche. But that would probably be to do with having more able platform for people to be able to buy in stock and things like that. So I'm still working on that. It's still very much a process. But yeah, I think having the know-how and knowing that just posting something doesn't always work, and it does take up a lot of time. So being a little bit more selective on the things that seem to be doing well, or like if I'm scrolling on TikTok or something and I want to make a TikTok ad for the book, scroll through a little bit first of people within the same niche as me and see the things that keep kind of popping up, the sounds that keep popping up, the hooks that keep popping up, and see how well, like how many likes they've got and stuff, comparing numbers and things like that. I'm starting to pay a bit more attention to that now, so they seem to be doing a little bit better. So hopefully after book 2, people will be like, oh, second book coming out, she's actually serious. So hopefully that will be the case. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But yeah, definitely knowing exactly where to insert myself and what kind of marketing tactics to use to try and get my stuff out there.
All right, all right. And I think another thing when it comes to marketing is understanding our audience. And I don't think a lot of people really take into account what that actually means, because in each genre there are readers, and readers have certain expectations of how a story is supposed to go. Now, I'm sure we've all been told the same thing, like write for your audience, write for the market. That may work for some authors, that will not work for all authors. It really
Mhm.
comes down to what book do you want to make and write. If you're going to write something that's just trying to join the niche or join the train, you're not going to do good. You're going to fail. So you have to write a book that you want. And who knows, maybe it might be your book that starts,
The new
the
train.
new niche. And ultimately, as authors, we have to understand that we're writing our books. We're not trying to write in someone's style. We're not trying to be like the next so and so. We want to be ourselves, because if we try to do the opposite, our readers are going to pick up and it's not going to be good. It's this balancing act of individuality with marketability. And it's
Mhm.
not an easy thing. I have struggled with that with my own writing in the beginning. I think I found my voice, but it hasn't been easy. I know what kind of books I like to write. Are there going to be inspirations that trickle down? Absolutely. That's the thing with us authors. We're also readers. So for
Mm.
you, Chloe, how do you balance the two to showcase your voice as an author, but also being conscious and mindful of the genre you're writing in and the expectations readers might have for a story like this?
Balancing what my work kind of is with what the market kind of expects from it is, I think, because I pour so much of myself, and so much of myself comes from what I've read in the past and what I'm currently reading. Um, Being able to know where my book sits kind of on that sliding scale kind of helps me find things that I would compare it to. And then you just kind of see what those authors have used as kind of like marketing techniques from, like, to draw in that same audience. So I think if I was to compare this one to anything, I would say it's probably a around along the same lines of a slightly spicier, slightly darker version of Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas.
Mm,
So taking the readers and what the readers expect from that book and what they've been using to market that book. Obviously, it's a wildly successful series. Most people who read this kind of genre know what it is, who she is, and being able to use that as a marketing kind of push and seeing how the publishers have used their marketing techniques to be able to draw readers in with that market, I kind of try and find at least a similar comparison, but like, this is what I liken it to, this is how I've made it mine, kind of thing. So
mm,
it's like, it's not the same story. Yes, there are assassins in it. It's the same as Throne of Glass, it uses assassins. Yes, there is kind of like a battle against some sort of like darker slash higher power. It kind of builds from that. My story will build from that. So there are certain similarities, but it's like, this is how I know you'll like it. This is how I've made it mine, kind of thing. I think,
absolutely.
yeah, I think using that as like a, like, this is something that you've read before that I have similarities to, but it's not this story. This is a story that it actually is. So if you like
Mm,
this, you'll like this, kind of thing.
very true. And now we get to probably the biggest of the biggest elephants in the room. And that is,
Mm.
of course, AI and the publishing industry. A lot of authors have voiced their
Hate it.
concerns, and rightfully so. And it pretty much boils down to this: the industry is never going to change. AI has already been integrated so much. And I'm sure you've also seen the headline of this one author who sold 200 books in 1 year thanks to AI. I do not like that. That cheapens
No.
the craft of being a writer. Now, with that said, I also know that AI isn't everything we use, like for autocorrect, writing aid, Grammarly. So we cannot say we are against AI, because that'll be against, autocorrect, which is a form of AI. What we can say, we are against generative AI in terms of creating books, because you're not really a writer, you're a programmer. And a lot of people have been pushing for this notion of, if your book was written with AI, it shouldn't say by author so and so. It should be programmed by so and so, because you are a programmer. Now, it's not to say you couldn't use generative AI in terms of brainstorming of an
Mm.
idea or a series of ideas. Absolutely. You can use it for that, but only that. The writing has to be your own. And Chloe, I would just love to hear your overall thoughts on this, and also to discuss whether or not, with the rise of AI, have we entered a, I don't want to say a digital dark age, but have we shifted from the golden age of indie authors that began during COVID and shifted towards a more iron age, in the sense of people who are passionate about the industry and those that are using AI to make a quick buck?
Absolutely. I would definitely say that we've shifted for sure. Um, people that try and say, "Oh yeah, I wrote a book," when they use AI to write it, infuriate me, because you are correct. That is not writing. There is no humanity. There is no heart. There is no feeling. There is no soul in that writing. And publishers say, "Oh, you can't tell the difference." I can. If you read a book that is
Yeah.
written by AI, you can tell the difference. You can tell that it's not human written. Um, I think there are certain points that AI can be useful. So, for example, if you're struggling to come up with the hooks in your marketing, coming up with a variety of ideas for the kind of hooks that are very popular at the moment, or just like, rather than individually scrolling through for hours, you can just type in what hooks are popular at the moment within my niche, within my genre, and then it'll give you like a little list and you can pick between those lists. Or, for example, if you are struggling to come up with character names that mean air or something, I don't know, just be like, AI, what is the list of worldwide names that mean air? Being able to use it for like speeding up the process a little bit or making things slightly easier for you, don't have a problem with that, because you're using that to inspire and improve your writing. You're not using it for the writing itself. I have the same problem with this for the art,
Yes.
because it feeds that, like, people creating AI covers and AI like character description, like character art and stuff like that. While sometimes it does look very good, it is also only looking very good because AI has been trained with several different types of artists that use that style, and none of them are given any credit. None of them are paid for any of it. None of them are paid for their time. None of them are paid for their work. None of them are paid for the amount of skill that it has taken to build their work to that point. And that kind of disgusts me a little bit. So I would say there are certain points in the writing process that AI can be useful as a tool, not as the writer itself. So again, using it for like marketing ideas, or to like narrow down the field a little bit and see what's popular, see what you could use to help you with your own marketing or something like that. But getting AI to create something for the marketing thing, that makes me so uncomfortable. The idea of like actually trying to write a book with AI, you haven't written anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's not writing.
It isn't. It absolutely
it's
isn't.
it's the worst. I hate it. And then people that are like, "Oh, I've had so much success and sold like 1,000 copies of this book within the space of 2 weeks, and oh, I'm doing so well." I'm like, you haven't done anything. What do you mean?
Yes.
So infuriating. I can't stand it.
Yes. That could be a whole discussion in and of itself, and rightly so. Now, Chloe, we do have one final question, but before I ask that, I'm now going to ask you a series of rapid fire fan questions. So
Ooh.
be prepared for these. So the first rapid fire question is this: which you prefer as a reader, themes or tropes?
Tropes.
All right. Next question: As an author, which of the 5 physical senses is the most difficult to showcase?
I would say probably touch, because it's quite difficult to describe what some things feel like sometimes.
All right. Very nice. Very nice. Best way to introduce conflict: the beginning of the chapter, the middle, or the end?
I normally try and do it in the beginning, and I try and start in the middle of the conflict, just because it is like an immediate power grabs attention.
All right. Next one. Which is your favorite type of scene to write? Conflict scenes or emotional / love scenes?
Depends on what mood I'm in, to be honest. If I'm if I'm really irritated and I've just come home from work and someone's like really ground my gears, I'm like, conflict, let's go. But most of the time, to be fair, I do enjoy a good fight scene, so we'll go conflict.
Nice. What techniques do you use to heighten the tension in a scene?
Senses and trying to describe the emotions with how they're feeling with the senses. So rather than being like, I was anxious, be like, my palms were sweaty or something like that, like using that kind of technique.
All right. Here's another one. This was a very long one. You're given unlimited budget to adapt your series into one of these 2 mediums. Your choices are a limited series with the cast of your choice and the director of your choice, or a full-fledged audiobook production. Which do you choose and why?
Ooh. I really do want my books to be made into audiobooks, but I feel like that is something I could eventually do myself, because I do actually know someone that has a sound studio. So I think I'm going to say the TV production, just because even when my auntie was reading it, she was like, this could so be a TV show. Like Netflix would pick this up like that. I'm like, I might have to apply for Netflix.
All right. All right. And here we get to the last rapid fire question. And this is mainly speaking towards the end of the process. As an author, which do you find the most difficult? And you may have mentioned this earlier, knowing when to stop editing or knowing when to stop writing?
When to stop writing, I think would be like, because I am more of a planner, so kind of like I do kind of wrap things up fairly naturally, even if it's towards the end of a book that's like the next one in the series is going to be like, there is going to be a next one in the series. I always try and leave it on a little bit of a cliffhanger so that they know what's coming next. But for the editing, I normally give myself a couple of readovers just to see if I can spot any immediate mistakes or things I would like to change. And then I give myself 3 full edits. So I'll do 1 line, 1 copy, 1 proofread myself. Then I'll send it off to ARC readers and my editor for a final proofread. That's how I've done it. I use my editor a little bit more in the early stages of these 2. But from book 2 onwards, I've kind of been a little bit more taking control myself, because I can kind of see what she was doing and what she was looking for. So for this draft that I've just got back, that I'm currently trying to do the last edits of, there have been a lot less kind of like things to look out for and a lot less edits made based on like, because I can see what she was looking for before. So I feel like knowing when to stop editing is like almost limiting yourself to a certain amount of edits and using each editing draft to look for specific things. So looking for the line edit, looking for the developmental edit, and just doing a proofread. And then kind of like give it maybe 1 more proofread after that, just to see like 1 final pass over, just to see if you've missed anything or like managed to miss any like spelling mistakes or anything like that. And kind of limiting yourself on how many you get before you call it a day. And then try and get a fresh set of eyes on it, just to make sure that it's within the genre that you want it to be in.
Very true, Chloe. Very true. And finally, to wrap up this incredible author interview, what do you want people to take away from this series, and especially the release of book 2?
I think, as I said earlier, I try and get a little bit of like heart and inspiration into all of the books that I write. I try and connect with the audience as much as possible, in that my characters do go through some quite harsh things. They do have many things to heal from, and bad days and good days and stuff like that. So setting or no, storyline plot or no, it's still like, even if they're not entirely human, they still have humanity and they still feel things and they still go through the same kind of things that humans do, because human written. So I do channel a lot of my own experiences and things like that into these books. I do have a lot of representation of like LGBT, of neurodivergence, of depression and anxiety, I've got like quite a diverse cast of characters and things like that. So I do try and get as much representation into my books as possible, and it's very much of like, everyone belongs here, and I see you and I hear you, I feel you, I believe in you. Whatever you're going through, you can make it through, and it's worth waiting for the next book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude our first author interview for the month of April here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. Want to give a huge thank you to Chloe for coming on the show, making her official debut on the channel. Now, Chloe, where can people follow you on social media if they want to reach out and connect, as well as buy the first 2 books in the series, as well as pre-order book 2 coming out?
Social media wise, I am on Instagram and Threads, and I'm also on TikTok. I do have a Pinterest page that's mostly just for my ad stuff, so I don't really check in on any messages or anything there. But yeah, in Pinterest, just for the pictures, the pretty stuff, and TikTok and Instagram and Threads are the places to definitely reach out. I am almost always on my DMs just to chat to people, so that'll be the place to find me. I do have a website, www.cpattison.com. That's where you can find any of my blog posts about my books, and also the pretty version of the map and how to pronounce everything. And in order to buy my books at the moment, book 1 and the prequel novella are out. Book 2 will be out on the 15th of April 2026. And stay tuned, because I'll be releasing another novella hopefully later this year. All of those are found on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. And any updates to that will be posted on my website. I'll be posting a link, because I have a blog post of all of the tropes and stuff of each book in the series. It's one blog post, so just kind of scroll down through, and I'll include, as new books come out, I add to that blog post. It will have links underneath of where to find them.
Nice. I will link all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. And if you would like to see Chloe back on the show in an episode of the Writers Hub series, you know what you have to do. Like this video, comment down below, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. And before we officially end, I did want to make this last announcement. I'll probably be making this a few times, but for those that haven't seen my previous episodes, I will be making my major appearance this year at LA Times Festival of Books at booth 128. So if you are in the SoCal area or the LA area and want to meet me in person and either snap a photo, buy a book or 2, or maybe all 3, that is where I will be. I'll be there on April 18th. From 10 to 12:30 and 3 to 5:30. You can find that all on my social media, and I hope to see you all there. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Happy April, everybody, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care. Have a wonderful day.